Hello everyone, and welcome to Inside Leather History at Fireside Chat. I'm Doug OKeeffe. I'm the host and the producer of the chats, which are a program of the Leather Archives and Museum. Today I'm in Chicago with Damian Simpson, who is from, well, shall we say New Zealand? For the purposes of the interview. And I just have to let everyone know out there in viewing land, it's the day after IML. So if we look a little bit like IML the day after, you know why. You got in a little early this morning.
I got in at 8 o'clock this morning, so yeah, I'm not particularly rested, but yeah, I had a great night.
And dare I ask what you were doing?
So I went to the Black and Blue Ball last night, and yeah, had a fun time.
So in case you're wondering, right now it's 2:30 in the afternoon in Chicago. He just got here at 8 a.m. First and foremost, tell us a little bit about where you're from.
So I'm from New Zealand. I grew up in Wellington, which is the capital of the country, but not the biggest city. Then I moved to Auckland in New Zealand, which is the biggest city, about 20 years ago.
What took you there?
So I'm a doctor, so I actually went to Auckland to train in medicine.
Okay.
And under duress, I didn't want to leave Wellington, but Auckland was where the medical school was, and slowly over time I've grown to like it as a city.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about the gay scene, the leather scene, kink scene in Auckland.
It's not particularly visible. I think it's there. I think people are. I think people with leather and kink are there in their own homes and practicing their their fetish and their kink. But visibly out and on the street, there's very little to see in Auckland at the moment. There aren't really any gathering points or parties or events. And it's kind of sad because I gather from speaking to friends that 20 odd years ago it was a lot more vibrant than it currently is.
Oh.
So somehow, I'm not sure why, but somehow it's become less visible over time. I think people are still there. You still see people on apps like Recon and Scruff advertising, that they're kink and their fetish. But out and about visibly, it's hard to find in Auckland.
You did say there's a bear scene.
There is a bear scene, and that's reasonably healthy. That attracts a good group of guys who come and socialise together once a month, and the Bears hold an annual Mr. Bear contest. Even that has had to be pared back.
I'm sorry, my gosh.
Even the Mr. Bear competition has pared back a little bit in the last few years, though, I think, just because of dwindling numbers and interest.
Do you think that's because of the apps, or is the population shifting? What do you think on that?
I don't really know why things have changed. I think the apps do have a lot to do with it. And I think the bars and the places that people congregate now are very inclusive, and I think people who are perhaps more into kink or fetish or the outskirts feel less comfortable in those places, and so tend to do things more in their privacy of their own homes. Or New Zealand, a lot of people will just travel to experience their kink or their fetish.
I do know there's the Christchurch Fetish Ball that's held, I don't know, a couple times a year, I guess. Have you ever attended?
You know what? I've not actually heard of that myself. Okay. I saw you mention it, or you mentioned it before to me, but I've not heard of that event. The only events that are happening at the moment, there used to be a bar in Auckland called the Urge Bar, and it was famous for being slightly more of a leather bear kind of bar.
Yes.
And that closed down 10, 15 years ago or so, but they continue to run pop-up events that sometimes that can cater for sort of older men bears and maybe a touch of leather. And in fact, I did an event with them, one of the first ones in Auckland in February, which was a gear up event where we invited people who wanted to dress in leather or rubber or other things to come along to a party. we had a good turnout for the first time. It was like 110 people turned up for this first time party in Auckland, which is actually pretty good.
Yes, it is. How did the people react? Were they very pleased with it?
Yeah, they loved it. Yeah, I think it was really widely well received, and people were very keen that we do another one at some stage. And it's amazing how thankful people are that you put on an event like this. And I'm always surprised that it was not as hard as I thought to do. And I'm surprised more people don't sort of step forward to do these kind of things, but they're always waiting for somebody else to come and do it for them.
Yes. How did you promote it?
It was all internet based. Well, we actually did it as part of Bear Week. So Bear Week asked me to do this party, tacked onto the end of their Bear Week as one of their events. So it's promoted through the Bear New Zealand website, Facebook. We got a little bit of sponsorship from Eagle Leather, which is a leather shop in Melbourne. We don't really have any leather shops, small shops in New Zealand, but not many. But we were able to get sponsorship from, a company relatively close to home.
Yes. I've been to Eagle Leather. It's really a very lovely facility.
Yeah. It's a great shop.
And BJ, the proprietor, is wonderful.
Yeah. I think I bought some of my first leather at that shop. So it's my first harness I bought in Melbourne.
Tell us about that.
I actually, prior to that, somewhere along the lines of my trading, I had to have a brief period in Melbourne about 20 years ago, or maybe not 20, maybe 15 years ago. And I knew that I was interested in leather and kink at that stage, but I was really just breaking into it. And the Eagle Leather is where I went and bought my first jockstrap, leather jockstrap.
Okay.
And it was, I can remember sort of the thrill of doing it and feeling, the risk of doing it. Especially, I was in a fairly vanilla relationship. It wasn't something my other partner was ever going to understand. And I held on to it for about a month or so, and I actually threw it away out of shame. I felt so sort of guilty that I was not, that I was doing something so subversive. It's just so stupid at the time.
If that was the very early stages of leather kink for you, how did you even learn of this lifestyle?
I guess mostly through apps like Recon. I was able to see people around, and I was sometimes able to have experiences with people that I would meet on Recon that were helping me.
Okay.
Like many guys, I guess I went to cruise clubs, and sometimes there would be leather events or other kink events, and I'd learn from those.
Okay.
And I guess, like everybody, the internet's a pretty good source of information if you're trying to explore stuff you don't know.
Yes. You did mention that post-COVID, the scene in New Zealand has not really been a public meeting sort of a place, and that you're trying to bring that forward a little bit. And so you've created the New Zealand Leather Social. How have people responded to this?
So really it's not a post-COVID thing per se.
Okay.
I think just for whatever reason in the last 20 years, leather has just simmered away.
Okay.
We call it Leather Up Auckland, the event that we do.
Okay.
And we run a monthly social, which is that we have an eagle bar. It's not really an eagle bar like you would imagine in other countries. It's much more mixed and certainly less leather and less kink. But they're happy to host us, and we have a 3 hour social event where people come. We have a dress code, and people come along.
Okay.
And have a drink. It's been really well received. We get anywhere between about 30 to 40 people show up.
That's very good, I think.
Yeah. And I'm always surprised. We will have people who turn up from internationally who just sort of have found out about us from our Facebook group or Instagram that come along, and it's great. It's I think the group that comes tends to be an older group, and they actually just want to socialise and have a drink. They're not out to go to a bar where they're clubbing or listening to heavy music. They just want to sit around with some mates, and they have I guess leather gives them a commonality. So if they don't really have other things of interest, they have at least leather an interest.
Yes.
And so it makes a really, it makes a really good social group. There's a really nice core of people currently, and then, as I say, more people come along on other nights, and there's a little bit of a push to try and make it a gear up kind of event rather than a leather up.
Okay.
And I don't know how I feel about that. Leather is my passion, and I've made the event, so I would like to do leather, but I totally understand that actually other types of kink and fetish also need their places. So it may morph in the next wee while, I think, into being more inclusive and expand to include those other things. And,
How about the role of women in your community?
I don't really see the women very visible in my community, and I don't know why that is. I guess because we're only just becoming visible ourselves as leather people. We're certainly inclusive in anybody who would want to come along, gay or straight. If leather is their fetish, they're welcome into our group.
Fantastic. New Zealand is a bit spread out, a lot of small towns. Do people travel from all over to attend these?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I know of people who will book their flights so that they can come to our event on this one Thursday a month. People definitely come along. I've even heard of people in Australia who have talked about coming across and being a bit of a contingent and coming and hanging with us.
Wow. That would be great. When we prepared for this, you did tell me that you've traveled, of course, to Australia and other places like here in the US, in Europe. What are your feelings on what you see in these other countries?
I guess I see it's just a question of sheer mass. You just have the population that you can have a decent sized leather community that's out there, and you can create a space for it, and it's used. And I know that I think we mentioned it, but numbers are dwindling perhaps in a lot of scenes. And I was in London just before Backstreet Bar closed, which was a sad event. But even so, compared to what's in New Zealand, there's just so much more visible.
This is your second IML. What are your thoughts on IML as an experience?
I think it's great. It's so diverse, and I think it can be whatever you make it, really, can't it? Whether you go to the competition part, or whether it's the vendor market or the circuit parties that are happening, or any other things that might be happening, you can make it your...
I don't know what you mean, but
Yeah.
What's been your favorite part of IML?
I've loved the vendor markets. I think it's just a great social scene. It's as much as being out and being seen as it is about being actually shopping, but the shopping is very good too. And I say we have very little access to leather in New Zealand, so it's great to be able to come here and see, people like Mr. S and other businesses and actually buy directly from them.
We actually had the privilege of meeting in person on Wednesday with the opening party at Touche. What are your thoughts on visiting the bars here?
Yeah, great. Yeah, I really like that the bars have still retained their flavours here. They still feel like leather bars, and they still feel like they're catering for the group that they came to originally. Yeah.
In addition to visiting IML, what other events have you visited internationally?
So I came to, so last year I came to IML, then after that I went to, a lot of my events have been since we were able to fly again.
Yes.
Obviously it's been, 3 years of lockdown and no flying, especially in New Zealand. But then since then, came to IML, I went to London, I marched with the leather guys in the Pride Parade last year.
How wonderful.
Joined the London, there's a social group that meets in Soho, Leather Social.
Yes.
And obviously I went to one of the final parties at Backstreet Bar. Travelled a bit to Australia for leather events. So Melbourne has a very vibrant leather scene.
They do.
And they have something called a week of leather, which I've attended a couple of times. That's pretty much it. I mean, Folsom said, that's not it. I forgot. I went to Palm Springs Leather Pride.
Ah, that's always a good one, yes.
Yeah, and I went to Folsom, San Francisco last year.
Have you been to Folsom, Berlin?
I'd love to. It was on my bucket list for this year, but I'm actually about to change jobs, and I can no longer get the leave to go, so I'm gutted about that.
It will still be there.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. It's an annual event, so I'll get a chance.
Now, in visiting all of these events and participating in all of them, what do you most like about them? What would you like to bring back to your community?
I think what I like is how relaxed and accepting people are of their kinks and their fetish and their leather, and how happy they are to be, to be seeing it and to be visible in it. And I wish I could bring that to my community back home. I wish there was more of that, and that people didn't feel like they had to either travel to enjoy their scene or be sort of behind the doors of their home.
Yeah. So obviously, you don't have a Mr. New Zealand leather contest.
No.
What are your thoughts on contests that you have been able to see?
Yeah, well, I've loved IML. I think they're great. I think they sort of foster this sort of, I guess they bring people from different cities together who get to meet, and it's amazing to get the European guys who are coming across to here as well. I think, there's definitely a place for them to just kind of hold the community together a little bit more and give it a focus.
What's so wonderful about the European contestants you just mentioned?
I just think it's great that they just bring another flavour to your leather competition. Yeah.
Okay. So, do you have, for example, something like the black and blue ball in New Zealand that can keep you up all night?
Yeah, we had this bar, the Urge Bar, that has disappeared, but now runs pop-up events, and they run parties, and they cater for an older group of guys, and they run leather events, and they'll a touch of leather, and they can keep you up late. Maybe not till 8 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe.
Hey,
Yeah.
So if I were to go to New Zealand as a tourist, maybe bring some basic leathers with me, what could I expect?
Sadly, I think you would find it hard. If you arrived at the right night of the month, you might hit our Leather Up Auckland night.
Okay.
And we've had people do that, and they walk in and think, oh, wow, look at this leather scene. And I think, well, you know what? This is one night of the month. You're not really seeing what's here. So in terms of visibility in bars and things, I think you would struggle a little bit to find other leathermen out and visible, apart from that one sort of social event that we run. I guess if you were looking on the apps and Recon and things, we have guys who are there who are enjoying their gig. And if you were looking to hook up with guys in that sense, I guess you probably could.
If the leather scene is struggling to have an image, and the bear scene, as you mentioned, it might slightly be declining, is there a gay scene that is thriving in New Zealand?
I don't know, that's hard to say. The thing is that I think all the bars have just become so much more inclusive, and so you don't have identifiably gay venues where people congregate. Even the bars that are gay bars now are so mixed that it's hard to tell that they're a gay bar. So I don't know if I could tell you that there's any one part of the community that is doing better.
Okay. What's the biggest misconception people have mentioned about any kind of gay life in New Zealand?
That's a tough one.
A bit of a challenge.
I don't know. I mean, as we talked about that misconception that people think that there might be a gay leather scene, and they're surprised to find that there isn't. Yeah, I can't think of any other, something more obvious than that.
What advice would you like to bring home to people in your community?
I just sort of encourage them to have confidence to get out and to, to get out and promote, what their kink or their fetish is, and to be comfortable in it. And to not be afraid to put your hand up and say, oh, I'm going to organise something because I want something. I mean, I've had a bit of praise back home for organising this leather social event, but there was nothing hard about doing it. It was just making a decision to do it. And it actually fell together pretty easily. And I think if more people took the initiative to do that, we could build more of a scene in New Zealand.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful. Well, Damian, we agreed we would keep this a little short.
Okay.
But I would like to thank you for what you've been able to offer us about New Zealand and about your scene and your community, especially on the day after IML.
Yeah.
This is the day after IML. This is what it looks like. But thank you.
Thank you.
For being part of Inside Leather History, a Fireside Chat.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, check out the Fireside Chat channel for more chapters in the history of leather. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe.